What aspects of gacha games keep the players engaged? Faculty Arts, Department of Game Design. Author George-Gabriel, Rentia, and Anastasia Karaseva. Bachelor of Thesis in Game Design. 15 HP. June 2022. Abstract. Numerous papers examine the relationship between gacha mechanics and gambling. However, few inquire about what attracts players to gacha games. This is the focus of this thesis, asking players, from their perspective, what are the elements of gacha games that keep them engaged. It also queries why, after having stopped playing gacha games for a period of time, players return to these games. Data is gathered through semi-structured interviews with 5 players who play gacha games at least 20 hours a week and who took a break from these games for at least 1 month. Results indicate that these players are initially attracted to gacha games due to their aesthetic, and that players value narrative elements associated with the games and the gacha characters. Interestingly, gacha mechanics itself was not pointed out as the reason for engaging with the game. Rather, it is used as a means to acquire a desired in-game item. Nonetheless, strong emotional attachment is associated with successful and unsuccessful pulls. A low amount of pulls to acquire a desired character item is described as a strong, joyful memory, whereas not being able to acquire the desired gacha or item despite a large number of pulls is associated with intense frustration and sadness. Collectionism was pointed out by players as a motivation for acquiring gacha items, with players placing a higher value on items they need to complete their collection rather than necessarily on high-rated game items. The results also indicate that burnout can occur when a game stops or slows the release of new content, eventually leading players to stop playing that game. Keywords: burnout, engagement, gacha, player response, pulls, virtual rewards. Table of contents: introduction, background, methodology, results, discussion. Conclusion, references, Appendix A, Appendix B, and glossary. Background 2.1, contextualization of gacha games. 2.2, engagement in games. Methodology. 3.1, interview schedule. 3.2, limitations and ethical considerations. 4, results. 5, discussion. 5.1, sub-question, what aspects of gacha games players consider to be the most appealing? Sub-question 2, why, after having stopped playing a gacha game for a period of time, are players motivated to return to the game? Sub-question 3, what are the emotional connections the players describe in relation to their experience interacting with gacha mechanics? 5.4, what aspects of gacha games keep the players engaged? Conclusion, recommendation for further research. Introduction. I really like this song. We're gonna keep it. The concept of gacha games generates controversy, and several studies have focused on the gambling and addiction aspects of such games. However, despite the negative media and academic attention, gacha games are popular with players. This thesis seeks to better understand why that is. What, from the point of view of the player, are the aspects that attract them to gacha games? Also, why, after taking a break from a game, do players return to gacha games? The purpose of this paper is to present information gathered directly from the players. It does not focus on the gambling aspect and potential associated addictions. Rather, it asks broadly and openly about the players' personal experiences with gacha games. Specifically, it seeks to understand what attracted players to gacha games in the first place, what are the emotional connections players develop with and associate with their favorite gacha games, and why, after having stopped playing a gacha game for a period of time, do players return to the game. A gacha game is a video game that is developed around the gacha mechanic, despite the fact that it is not necessarily the game's core mechanic. The gacha mechanic is a monetization model that emerged in video games containing randomized virtual in-game rewards with varying rarities. See section 2.1. Examples of gacha games are Genshin Impact, Honkai Impact 3rd, Love Nikki, and Maple Story. Figure 1 demonstrates how Gacha banners could look in games. These include information regarding potential rewards, time frame, and the amount required to pull Gacha. This will be further discussed in Chapter 2.1. This is a cutie. I want cutie. Brain go burr. Figure 1, Gacha banner from Honkai Impact 3rd. Loot boxes are often associated with Gachas since they have both a similar function in games. Both concepts provide a lucky draw experience where players spend in-game currency to receive a random virtual item in the game. However, loot boxes and Gachas do not share the same definition. This investigation is considered with Gacha mechanics only and does not extend to or include the use of loot boxes. While there is extensive research on Gacha games, most focus on the negative aspects of Gacha and the relation to addiction. However, few studies have been concluded that concentrate on the player's experiences and engaging qualities of these games. This study's purpose is to understand from the perspective of the players what they find engaging in these games and why they return to these games. The research in question is, what aspects of Gacha games keep the players engaged? In order to support the research question, 3 sub-questions are asked. Sub-question 1. What aspects of Gacha game mechanics players consider to be the most appealing? Sub-question 2. Why, after having stopped playing a Gacha game for a period of time, are players motivated to return to that game? Sub-question 3. What are the emotional connections the players describe in relation to their experiences interacting with Gacha mechanics? To answer the research question, the study adopted the qualitative semi-structured interviews with Gacha players that have taken a break from Gacha games for at least 1 month. The paper is organized as Chapter 2 presents the background and literature review, Chapter 3 presents the methodology, limitations, and ethical considerations, Chapter 4 presents the results, and Chapter 5 presents the discussion, with Chapter 6 presenting the conclusion. Background. This investigation asks players what are the aspects of Gacha games that keep them engaged. It therefore relies on a contextualization of Gacha games, defining the Gacha mechanics and its origin. Further, concepts of engagement in games in general and in Gacha games specifically are presented. Yay! 2.1 Contextualization of Gacha games. Games that are free to play, F2TP, have become an increasingly popular revenue model in the video game industry. F2P games can be acquired and played free of charge. However, players are given the choice to spend real currency on virtual goods such as stamina potions, skin, weapons, etc. As a result of this model, more people play and test out games, thereby increasing the economic significance of games as a business. The free-to-play games industry has experienced such successes that in 2020, a significant portion, 78% of games revenue, was from free-to-play games. Different revenue generation strategies have been developed for free-to-play games. One of the monetization methods used is the Gacha mechanic. To better understand how this mechanic functions, it is important to examine its history and origin. The name comes from the Japanese capsule toy vending machines. Gacha is an onomatopoeia that imitates the sound of a turning machine is the turning handle of the machine. These machines usually have the capsule goods divided into several specific themes whose contents have a different rarity. Some of the contents come in a set, and therefore users continue buying Gacha, trying their luck at getting a full set. The main feature of Gacha is somewhat similar to the lotteries. One cannot select a specific prize. Instead, users must insert a coin to which in return they receive one random toy from that certain collection. Despite Gacha's popularity among children and adolescents, these machines are also used by many adults. These capsules are bought by users for fun and are used as topics of conversations or memories of travel. The action of spinning the Gacha wheel after inserting the coin is called pulling or rolling. Gacha machines. Figure 2, Gacha machine with a variety of themes for capsule items. The concept of Gacha first appeared in the game MapleStory, developed by WiseNet in 2003. MapleStory is a 2D side-scroller game where the player explores a magical, vast world. The game features gacha machines in certain regions of the game through which players can exchange an in-game currency called the Gachapon ticket for a random reward. These specific Gachapon tickets can only be purchased with real-life currency. Figure 3. First recorded use of gacha mechanic in a game from 2003, MapleStory. Hot item. And I like Honkai Impact 3rd. Specky, you're not a bad person for liking MapleStory. But games like MapleStory, Honkai Impact, Tower of Fantasy do play to our weaknesses. In 2010, the game Dragon Collection, Konami 2010, was released on GREE, a Japanese social networking platform. This was the first game designed around the gacha mechanic. Dragon Collection is a card game where players embark on a journey while collecting dragon cards. The player's purpose is to become a Dragon Master by fighting other trainers called Dragacall Battler. The game presents a gacha mechanic through which players can collect dragon cards to form a fighting deck. As a means of acquiring more cards, the gacha currency can be earned by completing certain tasks within the game. It can be purchased with real money. Today's gacha mechanic in free-to-play games focuses on virtual items such as characters, weapon skins, and others. The player has free access to the rest of the content, such as world exploration, storylines, and events. These game contents are offered to the players free of charge, with a constant influx of content each update. Throughout the gameplay experience, gacha can be free to play. However, rare and other valuable gaming items often need to be obtained through special gacha with monetary purchasing. Moreover, each of the gacha elements that come with game updates provide new content related to the game world, engaging the players. In order to get rare items, the player has to earn the special currency on a daily basis by participating in daily tasks, events, and engaging with the main game content. The player who has the option of purchasing in-game special currency with real money, which later can be used to pull gacha items. Alha also explains that sometimes special items can only be collected within a certain time frame, building pressure on the player to spend money to get them before time runs out. I don't know how to turn this. Digital game element. Figure 4. Outline of gacha and free-to-play games. If only I could turn it. Oh boy, it got really small. So 1. Digital game element, not the game itself. 2. Paid for in virtual currency. Hard currency, soft currency. Gacha. Produces a virtual reward / item, always. Lemon wit? I don't know what that word is. Additional expertise? Outcome is chance-based, not skill-based, with changing probability mechanics. Mainly to increase monetization. Emotional trigger points. Chance-based, produces a virtual item. Has a role in the game. Varied rarity. Non-monetary. If it's non-monetary, there's not an emotional, it's not an emotional, what do you call it? An emotional trigger point. Another emotional trigger point is that it's limited. and it's collectible. So the emotional trigger points are: it has a role in the game, it is very rarity, it has it's a collectible, like it's part of a set maybe, and it's part of a timed event. It having a role in the game is segmented into different parts because it's a social aspect of it. Other players might be running around with it. It might make you feel left out, like FOMO, right? Decorative, so liking a certain like character, color, or whatever. Control Alt arrow key? Doesn't seem to help me spin. Thanks for trying though. Ecosystem focused. Figure 4 presents an overview of how the gacha mechanic works in games. Coder, Takana, and Midamo. Despite being a key element in the game, gacha is not the main game element, although in many cases the game can be played without engaging with the gacha mechanic. Its use can provide a new variety of gameplay experiences. Gacha pulls can be purchased with either soft or hard currency. Soft currency is the in-game currency. Soft currency is the in-game currency and can usually be acquired by completing daily missions, as a reward for completing limited tasks when there's an ongoing event, and some games also provide daily login rewards. Hard currency is an additional type of in-game currency which is purchased with real money. Once purchased, the hard currency has a value only within the game. Figure 5 demonstrates both soft and hard currencies using Genshin Impact. Puro Gems are a soft currency and can be acquired by completing game tasks or by exchanging the hard currency, Genesis Crystal. Puro Gems on the right, Genesis Crystal on the left. Examples of hard, Genesis Crystal, and soft, Puro Gem currency in the game. Gacha is a game mechanic based on probability. Some games provide a pity system where players are guaranteed a high rarity item in a specific amount of pulls. For example, in Figure 6, it can be seen that Genshin Impact has a pity system where the players are guaranteed a 5-star character in 90 pulls. Tower of Fantasy has a pity system as well, but it's every 80 pulls. Welcome back, Noel. I don't think I'm dry, but also I feel dry. So, I'm dry in my mind. Figure 6. Information regarding the pity system in Genshin Impact. In most cases, the pull is separated from the actual gameplay and uses special audio and visuals. Some games have different animations depending on the rarity of the gacha item. There's always a virtual reward, such as a character or item, after every pull. Figure 7. Example possible rewards from a gacha in-game for Genshin Impact. According to Coder, at La 2008 Gacha Rewards, A. has a given purpose in the game, decorative, functional, or social. B. are available at different levels of rarities. C. can't be redeemed for real currency. D. in often cases are collectibles. E. are often limited and connected with real-time in-game campaigns. Time banners can pressure the player into spending real money on gacha in order to receive a limited reward. Genshin Impact had a totally character banner? Wow. This makes me want to go back in time and play with this character. If you don't have any emotional attachment to characters in the game, say you're a new player, or you just haven't played it and haven't engaged with the story enough to get attached to characters, sometimes characters from other intellectual properties will make cameos as limited banners. Super Mega Champions has had a limited banner where you could play with a virtual YouTuber, as a character. Recently, Pulsing Gray Raven had a Nier Automata banner where you could play with Nier Automata characters. Let's see. I believe Honkai Impact 3rd had at one point a Evangelion banner where you could play with Asuka. And I now know that in the past, the Genshin Impact had an Atelier Toturi banner where you could play it with Atelier Toturi, who is my favorite Atelier character from that series. I am in pain. Limited banner from Atelier Online, Alchemist of Briselli. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was related to Genshin Impact. I didn't know that there was a Gacha game related to the Atelier series. The Atelier series is a series of JRPGs following a alchemist who generally isn't very combat savvy, and so even though they're the main character, it's kind of a what's the word? I guess it's a juxtaposition. As opposed to what like characters like Cloud in Final Fantasy VII, where it's like, oh, I have big Buster Sword, I'm a super soldier. It's I am soft girl who can make cool shit, and so you garner a team of people around you who can protect you while you make cool stuff. It usually has some amount of time mechanics, not Gacha related, but in-game days where it's like, oh, it takes this amount of time to make items, for example, and you try to balance your alchemy work with adventuring, but you still need to adventure to get items to use to make the items that you can create. And a lot of the items you can create are more than just potions and stuff. Sometimes they're weapons or even items that will allow you to go further into dungeons. It has a really great gameplay loop. I don't own any Atelier games at the moment, but I want to. It's a long-running series, and I'm very surprised, but also not at all, that there's a Gacha game related to it, because the mechanics that already exist in the game could easily be turned into Gacha mechanics. Also, I guess I'm a little bit surprised because the series has been very long-running, and I think it's been in existence since the PS2 days. And for as far as I know, it's very popular. But something being popular and garnering a lot of financial attention doesn't mean that there wouldn't be a desire for a publisher to make a Gacha game based off of it, because as we've already seen, most of the profits in the gaming industry come from free-to-play games, i.e. addiction abuse mechanics. That's a word I just made up. The acquired virtual rewards are only available within the game and are often an essential part of the overall game ecosystem. Gacha mechanics are often used in games to increase monetization for the provider. Gacha is commonly associated with loot boxes due to their similarities. Gacha and loot boxes can provide players with a random virtual reward for soft and hard currency. The main difference between these two concepts revolves around the monetization of the game. Gacha is often used in free-to-play games and is the key to the monetization mechanic, while loot boxes are usually in addition to full-price games in order to obtain more earnings. The different variations of gachas are also discussed by Kelder et la. And Shibuya et la. Table 1 describes some of the often used types of gacha. Table 1. Different types of gacha. Definitions. Gacha types. Setup gacha or bots gacha. Represent a virtual bots with set rewards where the possibilities of obtaining a high rarity gacha item increase after every pull and are known by the player. After every pull, the probability of obtaining the extremely rare item increases or steps up. Sugoroku gacha. Gacha combined with a board game, like Snakes and Ladders. Sugoroku board game has a start and an end. The player moves according to the results of a dice roll. Redraw Gacha. Players have a chance to re-roll their pulls for free or in exchange for currency. Consecutive Gacha. Purchasing multiple Gacha at the same time. That's what I usually do, actually. Consecutive Gachas. I think it's generally seen as quote-unquote common sense to save up enough of the in-game currency so you can get a batch of Gachas, which is why you often see people using banners like this. Even on Twitter, they'll be like, "Ooh, look what I got," because generally it's believed that probability-wise, it's better to do a group pull or 10 pull. Is this actually 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep. It's easier and makes more sense to do, I shouldn't say easier, but makes more sense, quote unquote, to do a 10 pull than do single pulls all the time. It's also more expedient. Open/close Gacha. Gacha with chances of gaining known/unknown by the player. Discounted Gacha. Users can pay less for a Gacha pull due to the ongoing campaigns. Kampu Gacha. The name comes from the Japanese word kampotoro, which translates to complete, which means players had to pull multiple Gacha set pieces in order to acquire the percentage Gacha item. However, the Kampu Gacha got banned in Japan due to unknown probabilities and players' complaints. Oh, okay. Wow. Aside from the Kampu Gacha, other events have affected the use of Gacha mechanics. In the first iterations of Gacha games, the chances of gaining an item with high rarity were hidden from the player, which contributed to the game publishers amassing large revenues. The chances of gaining a rare item were not always truly presented to the player. The lack of transparency led to a law announced by the Computer Entertainment Suppliers Association in 2016 in Japan. I didn't even know about this. As part of the law, companies must disclose item probabilities and pay Gacha so customers can understand their chances of winning. Instead of displaying the Gacha item offer ratios, the game publishers can select and focus on any of the following restrictions. The upper limit of the estimated amount of money to acquire any of the Gacha rare items is within 100 times of the charge amount per paid Gacha. If the upper limit is exceeded, the estimated price or multiplying factor must be displayed on the Gacha page. The price limit to obtain a rare Gacha items should be within 50,000 yen. If the limit exceeds, the estimated price must be displayed on the Gacha page. Let's see. How much USD is 50,000 yen? $3,659.80. Hackies. To answer your question, I'm using the program Faucet PDF Reader. The upper limit of the estimated amount of money to acquire any of the Gacha rare items is within 100 times of the charge amount per paid Gacha. If the upper limit is exceeded, the estimated price or multiplying factor must be displayed on the Gacha page. The price limit to obtain rare Gacha items should be within 50,000 yen. If the limit exceeds, the estimated price must be displayed on the Gacha page. Display the upper and lower distribution rates of rare Gacha items. The offer ratio is displayed for each type of Gacha item. After this law was passed on April 27, 2016, in Japan, other countries also followed the same steps by regulating Gacha games locally. Apart from the lack of transparency, there are other aspects of Gacha games that place them in a negative light. Their design is often considered addictive and deemed to entice players to spend more money than they initially anticipated. Winning high-ranking virtual items in Gacha is extremely rare and unpredictable. This can trigger the gambler's fallacy in players. The gambler's fallacy is a false belief that a certain event is less or more likely to occur based on the previous series of events. Steinzert claims that the fact that big wins are rare and random adds to the perception that players are bound to win eventually. In Gacha games, after every unlucky pull, players could start tricking their brains into thinking there is a greater likelihood of winning a rare item in the next pull. Engagement in games 2.2. I'll check out the rotate view next time I see a figure I need to rotate. Thank you. And yeah, you're right, Noel. That is a huge number to be the limit. It's kind of ridiculous. It's like, yeah, we're gonna put restrictions on these, but the restrictions still leave a wide berth for exploitation. 2.2. Engagement in games. Gatcha 2014 postulates a theory to explain why games are considered to be fun and why people enjoy playing them. According to the author, when experiencing joyful events, the human brain secretes happiness hormones in the form of chemicals such as serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins. These chemicals affect motivations, attention, and the desire to learn. Human beings enjoy learning new experiences because it helps them survive longer. Further, the human brain is designed in such a way that it constantly seeks patterns in all types of activities, including games. Players have the tendency to look for patterns to make their game experience more enjoyable. When games lack patterns, they can become noisy and may lead to frustration and procrastination. According to Gatcha, when we meet noise and fail to see a pattern in it, we get frustrated and give up. This leads to the groking, which means that the player understands a concept until a point where they become one with it and start loving it. Groking also leads to executing actions almost immediately without much thought. Gatcha believes that the destiny of games is to become boring, not to be fun, as the players will play for learning despite the fact that the game becomes repetitive. Furthermore, when a game becomes repetitive is when players enjoy it the most since they get the chance to apply their previously acquired skills. In other words, the whole process of groking paid off, and now they get the chance to fully enjoy their desired experience. That's what games are in the end, teachers. Fun is just another word for learning. This argument that players derive pleasure from learning new skills is echoed in Crook's skill chain theory. This model uses skill atoms and skill chains to explain what keeps players engaged. The player is entity that is driven. The player is entity that is driven, consciously or subconsciously, to learn new skills high in perceived value. They gain pleasure from successfully acquiring skills. Cook argues that the human mind is programmed to constantly crave new information. When players acquire a new skill, this leads to them attempting to master it. In addition, the player must experience every stage of skill atom loop before mastering a certain skill. This feedback loop is composed of 4 main elements: action, stimulation, feedback, and modeling. Title of action: player action, simulation, feedback. Model updated. General representation of a skill atom starting with the player making an action. Press a button, jump and collide. Animation on screen. I can jump! Figure 10. Skill atom of a player learning how to make Mario jump. That's funny. Oh, gracking. The O makes an A sound. Thank you. Sounds like an onomatopoeia. Action is how the player interacts with the game. Based on the action, the state of the system updates. Players then receive feedback, the visual representation of the change. This information is absorbed by players and updates their mental model. Depending on the player's need, they perceive the action as useful or unuseful, while the skill atoms are interconnected with one another. Gracking can occur, which makes the player interested once again in learning a new skill. When you learn something new, when you understand it so fully you can use that knowledge to manipulate your environment for the better, you experience joy. The player gets a chance to combine the overall enjoyment with the acquired skills to get a new, joyful, and relaxed experience. As a result of all the hard work the players had to put into learning, the game rewards the player with a sense of control. Cook's theory portrays the skill atoms in the 5 distinctive categories: mastered, partially mastered, unexercised, active, and burnout. Mastered skills are, as the name implies, skills that are recently mastered. Partially mastered skills are the ones in the process of mastering. Unexercised skills are skills that have yet to be mastered. Active skills are the skills that the player is currently using. Burnout skills are abilities that the player has lost interest in. However, there is one other type of skill which is called red herring. This is a type of partially mastered skill that does not help the player manipulate the world but provides a certain mood. Nonetheless, this skill creates a mental connection between the specific content and the already existing knowledge. This makes the player happy and to seek the feel again. When learning new skills, players have the tendency of choosing meaningful skills that match their current needs, in contrast to their learning process. The outcome is a skill which represents the player's ability to manipulate the world. Nevertheless, some skills are acquired subconsciously as a result of practicing and learning other skills. Free-to-play games continuously provide new content with each update, which encourages players to continue playing and updating their mental model for the game. In Gacha games, the majority of the new content that impacts gameplay, such as characters' weapons, skins, and cards, are tools for learning and are provided through Gacha banners. Free-to-play games' concept of Gacha has been discussed extensively, and theories have been written from the point of view of addiction and gambling. However, there are few studies that focus on the player's experience and engaging aspects of the game. This is the goal of this study, to understand from the player's perspective what they find engaging in these games, and in their own words, why they keep returning to these games. Methodology. The research question of this paper is, what aspects of Gacha games keep the players engaged? In order to answer the RQ, the study relied on qualitative, semi-structured interviews with Gacha players that have taken a break from Gacha games for at least a month. The interviews were 2-on-1 type, 2 interviewees and 1 participant. When the interviewers were the authors, interviews were conducted on Zoom, an online conferencing software, and were audio recorded. Interviews had a semi-structured approach, allowing more in-depth discussions. The interviews followed the interview schedule represented in Appendix B prior to the interview with the target participants. A pilot study was conducted to test the interview questions, length of the interview, and to give the authors the opportunity to practice their interview techniques. To recruit participants, an appeal was posted on Discord and Facebook Gacha game communities. To recruit participants, an appeal was posted on Discord and Facebook Gacha game communities. The appeal presented the research topic, requirements, and what would be expected from the participants. See Appendix X for the appeal. Candidates were sought on online platforms to account for a broader demographic. All the interviews were conducted and transcribed in English. Sampling was randomized, and target participants are active Gacha game players who took a minimum of 1 month break before returning to these games. There were 5 participants in total, and the demographic age group between 22 and 27 years of age. However, it was later found out that one of the participants was age 17, and in this case, their participation was approved by their parents or guardians. The average age included the minor was 24 years of age. None of the participants were previously known to the authors. A digital sign-up sheet was developed, where authors selected a convenient time and date for each participant. Different time zones needed to be taken into consideration. Before conducting the interviews, each participant received and agreed to an interview consent form. The form summarized the information regarding the purpose of the study, privacy concerns, and the intended use of the collected data. Participants who were under the age of 18 were asked to provide parental consent with their signatures. Additionally, at the beginning of every interview session, all participants were reminded about the interviews being recorded and that the gathered data would be anonymized. The participants will opt out of participating should they not agree with the aforementioned terms. When transcribing the interview recordings, the software Otter AI was used, which is software that converts audio files to written text. After the conversion, the interview transcripts were manually reviewed by the authors in order to transcribe data. An intelligent transcription type was used. In other words, every word was transcribed, excluding any pauses or filler words, and possibly correcting any grammatical errors. In order to maintain the anonymity of the participants, they're referred to as Participant 1, Participant 2, etc. The transcribed interviews were analyzed using thematic analysis. First, the transcribed data was analyzed by each author separately. The notes were then compared. The purpose of this was to determine whether any of the information had been interpreted differently by both authors of this paper. The qualitative data was later coded to make the analysis more systemic and rigorous. The inductive approach was used, meaning codes were often based on the data itself. Interview schedule. Before starting with the interview questions, participants were asked whether they agreed with the terms and conditions that were presented to them through the consent form. Once the participants' response was recorded, the authors began with the questions. Appendix B presents the questions that were prepared by the authors and were asked during the interviews. The interview questions were based upon and motivated by this investigation's research question. What aspects of Gatcha games keep players engaged? More specifically, each interview question seeks to answer a specific sub-question as described in Table 2. Table 2. Relationship between interview questions and sub-questions. Sub-question. Interview question. 1. What aspects of Gatcha game mechanics players consider to be the most appealing? 2. Why, after having stopped playing a Gatcha game for a period of time, are players motivated to return? 3. What are the emotional connections that players describe in relation to their experience interacting with Gatcha mechanics? Additionally, in order to identify patterns, control questions were asked at the end of the interview. These questions asked for participants' age, location, and current occupation. 3.2. Limitations and ethical considerations. Hold on, I need to grab some water. Wow. Now I'm back with a nice cold glass of water. .2 Limitations and ethical considerations. Interviews were conducted online during limited access to the target audience where the authors live. However, this approach has risks and limitations that need to be addressed. One common issue with online interviews is the need for a fast internet connection, which is crucial for remote interviews. Dealing with poor connection may impede the interview process. Delays and stutters may disrupt the rhythm of a conversation and may even cause miscommunication between the interviewer and participant. Additionally, in contrast to face-to-face interviews, online interviews may lack visual elements such as facial expressions and gestures. Due to this, it is possible that emotional content that could have also been analyzed was missing. The participants were from around the world and had different levels of language proficiency in English, meaning the language barriers were inevitable in some cases. There were cases where subjects did not at first understand the question asked by the interviewer or the requirements posted on the appeal. As a result, the interview process was prolonged. Managing time with time zones was very difficult. While interviewing candidates from abroad, the players were obligated to keep in mind the time differences at all times to ensure that the time selected was convenient with both parties. The interview had to be scheduled according to both interviewers and interviewees' time zones. For the author's convenience, each interview time was written in both parties' time zones. I don't see how just doing written correspondence would have given... I don't see how written correspondence would have given more emotional information. If anything, I would say it would be given less, because at least with audio recording the interviews, they also can tell the inflections of a person's voice. For example, if someone's really agitated, you can hear it in their voice. Or God forbid if someone started crying. What they were saying was, without the visual cues, they were getting less information. And if you just give someone questions, and I know this from interviewing people for the essay, one of the essays that we're working on, if you just give written questions, then you don't know what the correspondence is gonna leave out that in an interview scenario you could have asked follow-ups for, or based on the emotional cues that you're getting, ask certain questions or stay away from others. But no system is perfect, right? And obviously, being able to do online interviews allowed them to reach people that they wouldn't have reached before, i.e. people in different countries. Otherwise, they would have had to fly them out, and that would have been a huge expense. And considering this research was done this year, or at least completed this year, that means that, well, this is also like pandemic territory. Another limitation is that all steps of the research were carried out by the authors. The preparation for the interview schedule, conducting and analyzing interviews was done by the authors of this paper. This is not ideal since it can incur bias. However, it is a common scenario given the limitations of a bachelor thesis. The authors were aware of ethical considerations when it comes to gacha games and the potential connections with addictive behavior. These, however, have been addressed and previously published and are not the focus of this investigation. Results. This investigation seeks to understand what are the aspects of gacha games that keep players engaged. For the purpose of answering the research questions, the sub-questions focus on the appeal of gacha games for players, which are the players' motivations for returning to the game, and their emotional connection with interacting with the gacha mechanic. Results are based on semi-structured interviews with 5 participants with an age range between 17 and 27 years of age, and different locations, as described in Section 3. While gacha is one of the key mechanics in the game, the research suggests that it is not the main attraction for players to engage with. Figure 11 shows the topic of interest in gacha games brought up by players during their interviews. According to the received data, the popular aspects in gacha games are the story, characters, and game's art style. I want to also say that those are literally the 3 key things that I flock to gacha games because of. Them being gacha games is despite, not why is, sorry, how to rephrase that. I get into gacha games despite them being gacha games, not because of them being gacha games. Story the most. Rewards the least. That's very interesting data. Of course, they only were able to interview 5 people, but this is really interesting data. Figure 11 was participants' interest when it comes to gacha games. Numerous participants are interested in gacha games' visuals due to their anime-like art style. The promotional videos of certain gacha games showcase character designs and gameplay in an engaging manner, which appeal to some of the participants. For example, participant 3 mentioned that the art style of Honkai Impact 3rd was the main reason for them starting to play the game. Oh, well, I started playing my first gacha game through a Facebook ad. Then I got to know more about gacha games, and now I'm probably an avid gamer? My first gacha game was Honkai Impact 3rd. Participant 3 is recounted that their first gacha game was Honkai Impact 3rd, which presents a strong anime-like art style, and that their first encounter with the game was through an ad on social media. Figure 12, promotional artwork for Honkai Impact 3rd, similar to what Participant 3 may have seen in a Facebook ad for the game. It is also interesting to note that most of the participants like to collect gacha items. As opposed to focusing on the strongest items, most players tend to try and collect them all. Participant 1 and Participant 4 both describe themselves as collectors/whales when it comes to gacha games. Whales is a term used by the gaming community to describe a player who spends more money than the average player on a specific game. Participant 1 explains, I really want to get a character, and all the limited characters, so I will pull either way in terms of liking them. In Honkai Impact 3rd, I also tried to get all the characters. Participant 1 is determined to collect all characters not for their usage in game, but for their desire for completion, a common motivation amongst collectors. In case for Participant 4, they were eager to get a character with a rarity of 4 stars on one of the limited gacha banners rather than focusing on a 5-star character who was also available in the same limited banner, as they already had that 5-star character. Characters in Genshin Impact are ranked by stars, with 3 stars being the lowest and most common, and 5 stars being the rarest and most valuable. Participant 4 recalled, in Genshin Impact was a time when Yanfei came out for the first time. It was the rerun of Zhongli, and I already had him at the time, so I just want to get Yanfei, and then, bounce it off. So I just kept rolling it, and I got Zhongli and no Yanfei, and so I roll again and got Diluc. I know which characters they're talking about! My brain! Anyway. Roll again, and it was Zhongli again. So I got C2 Zhongli and +1 Diluc. But out of 105 rolls, there was no Yanfei at all. Oh my god, 105 rolls? God damn. I'll show you the characters real quick. Oh, that's really sad. Yanfei is a character that I have. And they're not even that... Oh no, they're 4-star. So they're almost... Ugh, my brain. Okay, so I have that one. I mean, pulling up the picture. And Diluc. A lot of people like Diluc. So for reference, this is Zhongli. He's actually the character who the story portion of the game that I'm currently in Genshin Impact is based off of. This is Yanfei, the character they did 105 polls to get. Sorry, and still did not get, rather. Which is funny because the character that you want is like it can be so weird because I thought Yanfei was cute, but I didn't have any particular desire to get Yanfei, and when I got Yanfei, I was sad because I wasn't trying to get Yanfei. So my luck would have made this other person happy. And Diluc is like, I didn't know he was a 5-star. Diluc is definitely a fan favorite. Step on me, daddy. Limited gacha banners in Genshin Impact normally include 1 5-star character and 3 4-star characters as potential rewards. The banner that Participant 4 was referring to was a rerun of Zhongli, who is a 5-star character. This banner also included a new character called Yanfei, who is a 4-star character. Participant 4 made 105 pulls, but despite a large number of pulls, unfortunately they did not manage to secure the 4-star character that they wanted. Instead, they received Zhongli, and they were able to upgrade Zhongli to Constellation 2. Basically, there's a skill level tree thingy where you can advance the skills and abilities of a character that you have if you get a reroll or if you get a duplicate. Oh, it's about to explain it. I didn't need to do that. In Genshin Impact, the constellations are unlockable abilities that can be obtained by pulling a copy of the same character. For each playable character, there are a total of 6 constellations, and in order to unlock all their abilities, players must pull 7 copies of the same character. Additionally, 105 pulls in Genshin Impact value is $210 US, and it is unknown whether Participant 4 spent real currency trying to acquire the specific character. Furthermore, Participant 4 stated that in Genshin Impact, players can clear all content while not owning any 5-star characters, which are the rarest of the in-game participants. States that you don't really need those 5-star characters to actually clear the whole content, which is Spiral Abyss 12 to 9-star. You can actually do with only 4-star characters and stuff like that. So a way that Genshin Impact made the gacha is a collection. I think it's pretty fine for Genshin. Here, Participant 4 talks about Spiral Abyss in Genshin Impact, which is a domain challenge that lasts 2 weeks. According to Participant 4, players don't need higher rarity characters in order to complete this challenge, and the gacha mechanic in the game is not forced upon players. Participant 1 said, Cookie Run only has 5 limited characters, and a lot, let's say 3 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars, just 5 5-stars. So it did make me 3,000 pulls to just get one of them. But because by doing that, I could literally full strength a very good meta 4 stars. Didn't seem like it mattered that much, even if it took a while to pull a 5-star. Cookie Run Kingdom currently has only 5-star characters, meaning players have to pull a lot of gacha to acquire one. While trying to obtain a 5-star character, Participant 1 collected a large number of copies of 4-star characters and was able to upgrade 4-star characters to their full potential. Even though the participant had pulled around 3,000 times for a single 5-star character, they seemed very satisfied with the results. Another interesting observation was that all the participants were open about discussing their gacha game expenditures. 4 out of the 5 participants have spent money on gacha games. When discussing spending money on a desired gacha item, 2 out of 5 participants expressed joy. One of the participants shared that they have savings ready to spend for their desired gacha items. Participant 5 said, "Once I get a consistent income and I have some side spending money, I was like, heck yes. I specifically put the savings aside because I knew I was gonna pull for him. Kazuha, real hard." In the second part of the quote, participant 5 talks about one of their favorite characters, Kazuha from Genshin Impact, and how they specifically saved money in order to get the character. As the interview continued, participant 5 elaborated that they spent $300 in order to secure that character. Well then. Oh, fucking Kazuha. Okay, so I am partially showing you the characters that they're talking about because it also contextualizes it through my experience of the game. Because although it may seem as though I am being like super critical of gacha mechanics, and I am critical of gacha mechanics, I do have the emotional connection with Genshin Impact. And I want this character, Inventi, the green colored femboy from the first the first country of the game, to kiss. I ship them. I like this character. He's also a tsundere if I remember correctly. He's very cute. And so like hearing someone be like, "Oh, I really need to get this character and I spent $300 to get this character." On one hand, I'm like, God damn, I don't think I can't really see myself doing that. But if I had enough money to have a savings, then that would probably be different. And of course, the argument about gachas a lot of the times, especially from the ethical standpoint, is putting people in a precarious financial position. And so, like, people like some of these participants who made sure they were in a good financial place to spend this amount of money seem to fly in the face of what a lot of people will say negatively about gacha games, that they're exploitative. They're still exploitative, but not everyone who is a whale is a whale to their own peril. Will the people feel the same way a year from now about the time and money they put into these games? I don't know. But for me, one of the things that helps me not spend so much money on gacha games is to remember that, say, 105 pulls or something can be equivalent to buying like 3 AAA game titles. And there's a lot of games that I want, and that's literally the argument that I give to myself a lot of the time. I'll be like, I could spend this money trying to pull for this character, or I could buy Splatoon 3. Participant 4 expressed pride when asked about their spendings. They stated, "Without a second thought, just went to the Paimon shop and got a whole lot of pyro gems just to get us on Glee, and I'm proud of myself." Participant 4 explains that when they did not get the desired character in Genshin Impact, they purchased in-game currency through the game store, which is called the Paimon shop. On a side note, some participants stated that they were unable to spend a lot of money because of unstable income. Here we go. On a side note, some participants stated that they were unable to spend a lot of money because of unstable income. This is highlighted by 3 individuals, one of whom is a student, and the other 2 who currently have jobs. Participant 3, who is a student, stated, I don't have any like allowance to spend on stuff like Gatcha, so I mostly am a free-to-play gamer. The other 2 participants described their experiences from their student years and how they had to be careful with their spendings. Participant 1 mentions, I was like 20 by then, and it was very competitive in a way that a younger person's budget cannot compete. During the interview, the participant brought up their experience with Heroes of Dragon Age. They explained that this game was very competitive, and people who could spend a lot of money had an advantage in the game. This participant unfortunately could not spend much to compete with the rest. Participant 5 also did not have the opportunity to spend a lot of money in their student years. They stated, I was still a teenager. I wasn't making much money back then. I'd have to be really careful about like the urge to spend money on that game. And so sometimes if I buy a package or something, I would play it consistently. They claimed that while they couldn't spend a lot of money, they would play the game on a regular basis so that they wouldn't feel bad about their expenditures. Today, Participant 1 and Participant 5 both allocate and spend money in Gatcha games. Lore was another aspect that participants found highly engaging in Gatcha games. Figure 11. Almost every participant stated that the narrative played an important role in games. Both the main and the side stories were brought up during the interviews. When a new character is introduced for the first time in a game, some companies also release a quest that follows the character's life events, giving the opportunity for players to get acquainted with them. Throughout the interviews, participants expressed that they enjoy learning about these characters. Some of the participants could not wait for the official announcement for certain characters, which made them resort to leaks. Participant 3 says, I found out about her, Fuhawa, from the leaks and stuff like that. I wanted her because my favorite character is Fuha, and I didn't care if she was overpowered or not, I just wanted more Fuha battlesuits. The characters in Honkai Impact 3rd are referred to as battlesuits, since they are not original characters, but rather stages of life of an existing character. The battlesuits in Figure 13 are different representations of the same character, however each has their own skills, fighting styles, and players can obtain both of them. This should not be confused with skins. Skins in the game represent an alternative character or item design. The purpose of these decorations is purely aesthetic and does not provide any special features. However, in some games, the skins can provide buffs, which are additional abilities and attributes to the virtual items. Welcome home, Nova! I'm glad you're safe. We're talking about Gatcha games. Oh, there's Fuha. Very cute. Character battlesuits in Honkai Impact 3rd. According to Participant 5, acquiring a character is more than obtaining a virtual item. They say that Gatcha is never really what pulls me into these kind of games, but I mean, I really enjoy getting to know all the different types of characters, so I mean, character Gatcha is always fun. And to Participant 5, character Gachas are enjoyable since it allows them to learn more about different personas. In Genshin Impact, when players pull a character, they receive more information and backstory about the specific character. Players receive information on the character's life, intentions, and aspirations. Players can also read information on what characters think about other characters and their relationships. Reasons for taking breaks from Gatcha games. Burnout and irrelevancy are the top ones. Personal problems are, I guess, second place, right? And competitive is the lowest factor. That's not surprising, especially because at least some of the most popular Gatcha games, Honkai Impact 3rd and Genshin Impact, are not competitive games. One of the questions this investigation aimed to understand was why some players take breaks from Gatcha games and afterwards return to them. The interviews highlighted several reasons. Why players took a break from Gatcha games. Figure 14 shows the reasons for participants taking breaks from games. 2 out of the 5 participants were forced to stop playing gacha games for a period of time due to lack of time, as the participants' schedules were getting more crowded and games were not their primary focus. They were forced to reduce the amount of time spent playing games and abandon some of their favorite ones. Participant 2 explains, "Sometimes because real life was getting overwhelming and there was stuff I needed to do. Some even expressed sadness and that they would not have stopped playing if it was not for personal matters." Participant 3 said, "Well, honestly, I came back because I was forced to not play because of my schoolwork and busy life. I really want to continue playing these games." Other participants provided an alternative explanation regarding their breaks and abandonment of certain games. 3 participants out of 5 took a break or quit playing due to burnout. The burnout was due to participants being active daily, performing the same tasks in the game, as well as an absence of content. Participants indicated a tendency of feeling burned out when companies started releasing less content or stopped producing new content at all. Games such as Kingdom Hearts Union and Fantastica were mentioned as examples of games during the interviews. Some participants have developed a strategy to avoid burnout while playing gacha games. As participant 1 explained, "When the new patch comes in, I usually spend all the gems and then take a breather before playing again. When the game content is updated, participant 1 spends all of the in-game currency they saved, then takes a break until the next update as a coping mechanism against burnout." Moreover, participant 1 mentions that they play multiple gacha games. However, they only play 3 of them at the same time, while the rest are played individually one by one. Participant 1 stated, "I usually don't play them all together except for this one, which is Honkai Impact 3rd, Genshin Impact, and Cookie Run. Apart from that, the other games I usually play are one by one." There were also cases that were brought up in the interview regarding content that is unrelated to the original game. When this happens, players express that they began feeling overwhelmed and frustrated with having to readjust. For instance, according to participant 4, Crusader Quest added an extra equipable slot meant for weapons, which was not part of the initial game concept. Previously, the characters had weapons that couldn't be changed or upgraded and only function as part of their design. Moreover, this character design was changing when reaching a certain upgrade point in the game. Now, however, in a recent increase the power of the character. In order to increase the power of a character, players need to acquire a good weapon through the gacha mechanic. Changes in skills upon promoting. Level 1. Level 1 Circle Level 1? Special skill transferable. Level 2. Block skill enhanced. Unlocks passive. Level 2. Higher special skill transferable. Level 3. Block skill enhanced. Passive upgrade. Another example mentioned was Heroes of Dragon Age. One of the participants stated that the developer began releasing content that was not connected to the main story. The participant explained that they could not feel attached to the new characters and thought that their rarities were absurd since there was no backstory on them. Partially, this was the reason for participant 1 quitting the game. Participant 1 said, "When I did come back, I think I only stayed for maybe 2 or 3 months before leaving it entirely. And that is because there are no new things coming in. A very simple dragon that didn't even have a name in the main game would become a triple SR, 6 stars kind of character, which is ridiculous." Participants' reasons for returning to gacha games. Content and time availability are the lower factors, though they are even. But the highest thing was nostalgia. After taking a break, all the participants resumed playing gacha games. The participants returned to the games due to multiple different reasons, as demonstrated in Figure 16. One of the reasons that many participants could relate to was nostalgia. They wanted to relive some of the experiences and feelings they had when they first started playing the game. Participant 1 says, "When I came back because I want to relive something." Participant 2 mentioned, "So I was checking in on how things are going in somewhere that I knew had good content at some point." Participant 4, "You stop playing it and then come back and play it again. People's type of games that you just play because of nostalgia." 4 out of 5 participants took longer and more frequent breaks until they finally quit playing some of their old gacha games. Participants mentioned regarding Heroes of Dragon Age. I actually took a break for 1 month, and then it took 3 months, and then it took almost 1 year. But when I came back, I think I only stayed for maybe 2 to 3 months before leaving entirely. Participant 5 expressed a similar experience. I take a break is just because I was playing it too consistently, and I just feel like I was feeling burned out. I need to just sit it down for a while, and sometimes I sit it down for good. Mastering gacha items was also discussed during the interviews. This refers to understanding and utilizing the items to their full potential. Figure 17 shows what stages participants consider themselves in when it comes to mastering their most used gacha item. 2 out of 5 participants said that they have not yet mastered certain gacha items. It is a pie chart. Participants also master certain in-game items they receive through gacha, use them consistently while playing. Among the 5 participants, 3 noted that once the item is mastered, they have fun and tend to use them frequently. For example, participant 4 stated, whenever there's something like an event or like a new map, as long as they're not countering the shield at all, I will always bring Zhongli, no matter what. Participant 4 is talking about a character from Genshin Impact, called Zhongli, that is capable of casting shields. Furthermore, they're also saying that unless they encounter a challenge which counters the shield of this character, they will always bring Zhongli in their team. Participant 5 had a similar statement to the Participant 4 saying, but you know, I can also solo him, Kazuya, in most cases now without having to use other characters. Oh, he's such a fun character to play. It was impossible to have him not on my party anymore because I had so much fun. Based on the participants' accounts, the learning process tends to start before the virtual item is released in the game. As mentioned earlier, players often have access to gacha items information before their release date through leaks. This suggests that the learning process of gacha items can start before having full access to the items. Through leaks, players can receive information regarding upgrade material, combat skill, team composition, etc. Participant 3 mentioned that due to leaks, they were able to pre-farm, or in other words, pre-collect upgrade materials required for the upcoming character. I farm farmable tiers or weapons, artifacts, and stuff like that. We get tidbits of the latest version of the Chinese server, which is like more or less a month earlier, so we get to see what will happen next before what happens. Also, I want to mention that a lot of times when they introduce new characters, or when, specifically in Genshin Impact, when a banner posts, they'll usually have a little demo event where you can demo the characters and see the mechanics and how they play. And that can get you attached to those characters as well. Happened to me. The game participant 3 mentioned is called Honkai Impact 3rd, and it has multiple servers around the world. Since the game was initially launched only in China, the Chinese server is the first to receive updates, with the rest of the servers while the rest of the servers receive updates a few weeks later. Nevertheless, the 2 out of 5 participants were opposed to leaks. They strongly believe they embrace the immersiveness and excitement. Instead, they prefer to wait for the official announcement to start their learning process, which is a few days prior to the item release to the game. Participant 4 explains that, I don't really watch those leaks and stuff like that, so I waited until the actual Hoyoverse released the skills and stuff like that, and I just want to try to analyze it. Players also learn without owning the actual item. Some games provide trials for newly released gacha items, which allows players to partially master them. Participant 1 said, when I get a character, or when it's in the trial, that thing I mentioned before, the trial, I read all the info, the talents, and how to use them. I practice a bit. In Genshin Impact, during the character trial periods, have the opportunity to read about the character's abilities. Participants read additional info available during the trial to decide how many copies of the same character players would like to pull. Participant 5 said, I did test them, Kazuha, out first when they had that available before I kept falling for him. And that's when I looked at his constellations, and I realized a C2 would be really helpful. Participant 5 read the constellation 2 for this character was useful and something they really wanted. To increase the constellation, players need to acquire the same character several times to upgrade them. In this case, Participant 5 had to pull 3 copies of Kazuha. While asking players about the happiest and saddest moments of their gacha game experience, their answers revolved around the same matter. This matter refers to them pulling for a specific gacha item. All the participants said that they were happy when they got a limited gacha reward that they wanted in a low number of pulls. Participant 1 stated with excitement that, "I got like Targalia on my first pull. My sister told me this is the 5-star you have a chance to get him, Targalia. And then I did him in one pull and bam, he came in and we screamed because it was gold." Let's see what the character looks like. Oh, ha. Oh, this guy! I've met him in the game, in the current part of the story that I'm in. He is a cutie. Hydro Elemental, I believe he uses arrows, so he uses water arrows. His codename is Child. Here they are talking about a 5-star character named Targalia, who was newly introduced to Genshin Impact at the time. Participant 1 was able to obtain him from a limited gacha in a single pull, which they later described as the happiest moment of their gacha experience. Other participants had similar experiences, and they were very thrilled to talk about their own happiest gacha moments as well. Participant 2 also mentioned being able to acquire a high rare character using the gacha mechanic. However, the high rarity character took them by surprise since the indicator which shows the high rarity of a gacha item was not there. I managed to get her in a single pull, which came very unpredictably. The graphics for indicating that it's a high quality character weren't there for some reason, but I was very surprised and I was very happy. The participant was interested in a specific character from Another Eden, who they don't name during the interview. Participant 2 also mentioned that it sometimes happens in this game. This is an intended feature in Another Eden to make players feel extra lucky. Participant 3 expressed joy when asked about their happiest experience with gacha and stated, "I saved up a really long time for this character called Fuha and saved up a really large amount of crystals. I've never saved this much crystal before. When it came to a banner, I was like, I got her to SSS. I got her. I got her full gear twice. And I even got her outfit too. So basically, that was a very, very well type of koi, if you will." Participant 3 saved up a lot of in-game currency for one of their favorite characters in Honkai Impact 3rd. Once the character was released, they were able to acquire a copy of Fuha. They had a lot of currency left, so they tried their luck again, being able to acquire multiple copies of the same character, which allowed them to fully SSS the character. Additionally, the participant was also able to obtain the equipment and design specifically for this character. To complement Participant 3's experience, Participant 5 mentioned that they were always happy when they're able to acquire high rarity gacha item in a low number of pulls. All participants also shared a similar sad gacha experience. When there was a gacha item the participants want, they save up the in-game gacha currency specifically for the limited banner. Once the banner is available, the participants spend their savings until they get the item they want. Unfortunately, in some cases, the participants were unlucky enough and unable to obtain the desired item. The fact that they saved up for a specific banner and ended up not getting the desired gacha item was a very devastating fact for participants. One of the participants further explained that gacha moments like this make them feel very demotivated to continue playing the game. Participant 1 recounted, "So I saved up for one. So I saved up, or I spent and I tried to get them, artifacts. And there are times where you get 3 of one artifact rather than three different artifacts. So it kind of gets a little tiring. Say using up all your saved gems. Participant 1 is talking about trying to get an artifact set using the Gatcha mechanic and Honkai Impact 3rd. These artifacts are pieces of equipment used to increase the power of a character. Moreover, like any other Gatcha reward, the players have a specific chance of getting them. Additionally, Participant 4 shared another Gatcha moment that was both sad and happy. The participant wanted to obtain a 4-star character in one of the limited banners. However, they received instead 2 different 5-star characters. Figure 18. Ways in which participants first learn about Gatcha items. Community. Most likely. Then official announcements, second most likely, and of course dead last, in-game content. Figure 18 shows how participants learned about certain Gatcha items. A high number of participants mentioned that they first learned about specific Gachas from the community. The community in this case represents a group of people with common interests. Participants mention family members, friends, as well as social media groups that provide leaks. 3 participants learned about certain Gatcha items through official announcement made by the company. 2 of 5 participants said that they found out about certain Gatcha items through the in-game content such as stories and events. I didn't know Another Eden was a Gatcha. I heard about it and it looks fun. Might avoid it now. Genshin Impact is probably the most popular Gatcha game right now, so it makes sense that all the participants play it. Ah, that they play often. Table 3. Gacha games mentioned by the participants and their current state of playing. So this is just a breakdown of this one. They all have experience with Genshin, but they don't all actively play it. 2 of them used to play it, and 3 of them currently play it. 3 of them currently play a Honkai, but 2 of them have never played it. But it is interesting also because all the characters. Oh, Punishing Gray Raven. Punishing Gray Raven is a game that I started up recently. It's very fun. Wild, right? What else can I say? If you get into one Gacha game, the chances are you will get into more. I don't know why, but I can't see Maple Story as a Gacha game despite playing it. Maybe it's because, well, also remember, it was a Gacha game before Gacha games were, like, codified in the gamer landscape. Like, at the time, it had gachas, but it wasn't... But no one was calling it a gacha game because gacha games as a whole didn't exist yet. And you probably also have nostalgia from it that probably affects your considerations of putting it into the same camp. Also, I would hazard to guess that most of the games on this list are very similar. I can tell you for a fact that even though Punishing Gray Raven was recommended to me by someone who doesn't even play gacha games or doesn't even like gacha games, part of its appeal to me is similar to the appeal of Genshin or Honkai. If Tower of Fantasy is Genshin but sci-fi, and Honkai is the future of Genshin, Punishing Gray Raven is a grimdark version of Honkai. That is to say, it is very similar to Honkai. it's a sci-fi story. It has a character action aesthetic, but it's not bright and cheerful. It's more similar to Nier Automata, actually. Maple Story, even though it has a colorful aesthetic, is a game on this list that I would compare to Maple Story is kind of like Kingdom Hearts. What was it called? I forgot what the Gacha Kingdom Hearts is called. But like, it has a very like paper doll aesthetic. Same thing with Cookie Run. Its aesthetic differs so much from the popular gachas that I can understand why it's hard to put into that wheelhouse. Even outside of gacha games, I get the same feeling about other games. Like, if someone were to tell me that, like, Resident Evil is a Metroidvania, I'd be like, wait, what? But Resident Evil definitely has a lot of tropes related to Metroidvanias. And there are Metroidvanias with less things in common with popular Metroidvanias than Resident Evil that I would consider Metroidvanias first. Mobius! It's Mobin time! Ah, Fluff Shadow Day. Yeah, you get to see me doing work. I'm doing research on an essay. Table 3 in Figure 19 demonstrates what games the participants played or continue playing. The mentioned games were Genshin Impact, which is a 3D action role-playing game that has a character and weapon gacha mechanic. The second place was Honkai Impact, which is also a 3D action role-playing game. Gacha banners for this game tend to feature characters, gear, and equipable artifacts called stigmata. 5. Discussion. Discussion focus on addressing the research question. What aspects of gacha games keep the players engaged? In order to make the process of answering the research questions easier, sub-questions with focus on the gacha's appeal, players' reasons for returning to these games, and the emotional connection when using the gacha mechanic were asked. Each sub-question is discussed in their own subsections. The data required to answer the research question was gathered through qualitative semi-structured interviews. The participants were asked to meet a requirement that is represented by a break of at least 1 month or longer from gacha games. The interviews were transcribed and analyzed by the authors of this paper. This chapter has four subheading, which are Chapter 5. Sub-question 1. What aspects of the gacha games players consider to be the most appealing? Sub-question 2. Why, after having stopped playing a gacha game for a period of time, are players motivated to return? Sub-question 3. What are the emotional connections the players describe in relation to their experience interacting with gacha mechanics? And sub-question 4. What are the aspects of gacha games that keeps players engaged? I'm doing okay, I suppose. Thank you for having manners, LOL. What's the essay about? The influx of gacha action adventure games? Oh, it's about Tower of Fantasy specifically. I was talking about whether or not, I was basically just doing an overview of Tower of Fantasy. It's the good parts about it, the bad parts about it, and its controversies. Although I will use this research eventually in an overview of gacha games in general, not just action adventure ones. Because I play, the first gacha game that I got really invested in is a game called Super Mecha Champions, which is actually a battle royale. I think it definitely painted a picture for my experience of gacha games going forward. And I guess the essay that I'll probably make down the line is more in line with the things that this paper was kind of navigating. What aspects of gacha games characters consider to be the most appealing? When asked about their interest in gacha games, the results showed that the narrative was mentioned by all participants. The main game narrative, which primarily follows the protagonist, was brought up on multiple occasions. Additionally, some of the participants showed interest in the character stories, which allow players to get to know certain characters. Moreover, one of the participants specifically mentioned that they started playing Genshin Impact again because of a character story. In Genshin Impact, every time a new character is released, a story that revolves around them is also provided to the players. This gives players an opportunity to get familiar with characters and become emotionally attached, which relates to the next popular aspect of gacha games. Characters along with visuals were the second most popular aspects among the participants due to their aesthetic design and interactivity. The study indicates that when obtaining a high rarity gacha item, especially characters, the participants express joy and mention fun as a way to describe the process of pulling. However, the fun does not end there. Going back to Kosher's theory, when experiencing joyful events and obtaining a rush of happiness chemicals, players are stimulated to further engage with the gacha items. Participants were more interested in character gachas in comparison to other gacha items due to their complexity and their feedback loop of interactivity. Once acquired, the characters in gacha games provide players with the opportunity to learn and experiment in an enjoyable and interactive way. Despite the fact that it wasn't mentioned directly by the participants, this can be seen from the way participants describe their experience when asked about mastering a gacha item they acquired. Another aspect of gacha games that participants were interested in was their gameplay. 2 participants of 5 said the gameplay was appealing to them because of gacha characteristics that introduce new ways to play the game. Cook states that once players learn something new and master it, they can utilize that information and manipulate the game's environment to their advantage. One of the participants mastered a character received from Gacha. They overuse and adapt their skills to their best interests. The participants can combine the newly acquired skill with their already existent skills and form a new skill map that makes the game experience joyful. Participant 5 explained that by acquiring Kazuha, who is a character in Genshin Impact, they were able to navigate the game world more easily. Kazuha has an ability to make a very high jump, which allows Participant 5 to reach areas swiftly without wasting character stamina. I see. Additionally, one of the participants mentioned that they were attracted to the rewards that certain gacha games were offering. Participant 1 explained that Cookie Run Kingdom is a gacha game with high value in-game rewards which motivates players to keep playing. In order to clarify the statement from Participant 1, additional research on the rewards provided by Cookie Run Kingdom was made. It was found that a player base on Reddit that sometimes the in-game currency rewards can be compared to their $100 US dollar packs. To summarize, the interviews indicate that Gacha is not the main interest to the participants. Instead, participants are attracted to the game narrative, visuals, playable characters, and rewards. On multiple occasions, character stories were brought up where participants were able to learn more about the playable characters. Moreover, from the participant's perspective, obtaining a character is perceived as enjoyable. However, they further mentioned that fun did not stop there. It was seen in the analysis that while learning how to master the character, participants were still experiencing fun based on Kosher's theory. Sub-question 2. Why, after having stopped playing a gacha game for a period of time, are players motivated to return? After taking a break from a certain gacha game, the majority of players mentioned that they have returned to the game because they wanted to relive their first experience. This suggests a relationship to nostalgia, which is a common reason for humans to want to relive previous experiences. Nostalgia might be related to favorable memories from the last time the players encountered the game, or with experiences within the game that they consider particularly pleasant or enjoyable. However, it was noted during the interviews that the recollection of that initial experience could never completely be replicated because the player, despite taking a break, was already familiar with the game. Humans are evolutionarily programmed to enjoy the learning process since that increases their chances of survival. When players successfully acquire skills, they can apply them to manipulate their environment for the better. They gain pleasure as a chemical reward. Gachas and free-to-play games constantly provide new content for players. After learning everything in the game, the learning process of the players becomes faster than the ability of the developers to produce new content. It can be speculated that these breaks were taken in order to help themselves relive experiences by trying to forget how the game works. As the cycle repeats, the breaks become longer and more frequent until participants quit playing some of their old gacha games. This supports Kosher's statement that games are designed to become boring and not fun. After participants go through the break loop multiple times, they have a clear mental skill map of the game, which interferes with the process of relearning everything from the beginning, thus not reliving the same experience. Another interesting aspect that was noticed during the interviews was that some participants developed a strategy to avoid burnout. Participants would switch between multiple games to slow down their process of learning for every game. The constant switch between games makes it harder for the brain to create a clear skill map. I will. Okay, I was gonna say I'll take a break when I get to the next section. It's like there's gonna be another page before that. I'll grab water at the least. Okay. Yeah, it's for an essay. I was gonna finish writing the essay on stream, but this took way longer than I anticipated. So after I'm done with this, I'm gonna raid someone that I think is still streaming, but it really depends. It's 9 o'clock now. If they started streaming at the time I think they did, they've been streaming for 2 hours, which isn't a long stream. I say while I'm about to hit 7.5 hours of streaming. Another reason for participants leaving the gacha games for good was the irrelevant content introduced in games which was not of interest anymore. This is discussed by participants 1 and 4. Participant 1 talks about Heroes of Dragon Age, where the game stopped developing the main story. However, the game continued releasing new gacha items, which were not relevant to the main content anymore. Participant 1 perceived this as absurd, which led to them quitting the game for good. Participant 4 reports a similar situation in another game called Crusader Quest, where developers introduced an additional feature represented by weapons. According to Participant 4, after this change, to get a good weapon, players had to use the gacha mechanic. The participants perceive these changes as noise, which takes us back to Koster's theory. Koster explains that when players cannot identify patterns, they cannot grag, get frustrated, and establish it as a useless feature. This is what happens in the case of Participant 1 and Participant 4. Time availability was another reason to return to gacha games. 2 out of 5 participants were forced to stop playing certain gacha games due to personal matters that needed to be taken care of. Participants had to take a break due to school and work-related matters. Additionally, one of the matters was taken care of, and the participants had more free time. They returned to their put on hold gacha games. Moreover, participants also mentioned the game content as a reason for their return to gacha games. Two participants who mentioned this as a reason had different motives. One of the participants specified that they came back due to the game update that conveyed content they liked. The other participant returned to the game without knowing about the new content. They explained that their return revolved around the game, which once had content to their liking. The participant was sure that the game had been updated and provided the same game experience they once enjoyed. In short, the participants took breaks due to reasons such as burnout, time constraints, and noise. Burnout was the most common reason to take a break from gacha games. Some participants had developed a method of avoiding burnout by taking breaks and switching between multiple gacha games, which prolonged their learning experience. The participants who mentioned time constraints as a reason to take a break explained that they would return once they had more free time. This is done involuntarily due to more important matters. The content irrelevancy was perceived as noise by the participants, which led to longer and more often breaks. As a consequence, participants would quit those gacha games. Besides time availability, participants also mentioned that their reasons to return to gacha games was nostalgia and new content. 5.3. What was the emotional connections the players describe in relation to their experiences interacting with gacha mechanics? During the interviews, participants were asked about their happiest and saddest gacha experiences. The participants' answers revolved around the same idea in both scenarios. The results showed that all participants experienced joy when they won a limited gacha award in a low number of pulls. It is hard to establish a number for what a low amount of pulls represents, since each game handles their in-game currency differently. For example, 100 pulls in one game could be considered low, while in a different game this could be For example, 100 pulls in one game could be considered low, while in a different game this could be a high number of pulls. The understanding of low and high amounts of pulls has been established based on the participants' explanations. One of the participants joyfully described their experience of receiving a high rarity character in their first pull after starting to play the game. The participant also mentioned that they had the chance to share their happy moment together with their sister, which was a reason for them playing that specific game. The experience happened in the game Genshin Impact, where the usual amount of pulls required to pull a high rarity item can vary between 70 to 90 pulls, with the 90th pull being the guaranteed rare gacha item. Another participant also mentioned that they were able to get a high rarity character in a single pull. When pulling for a gacha item, there is usually an animation with different visuals for each item's rarity. Participants who explained that in their case the animation indicated a low rarity gacha item. However, to their surprise, they received a high rarity character, which was unexpected and made them happy. The game that is described is called Another Eden, which such events are possible according to participant 2. Obtaining the desired character did not stop some participants from further trying their luck on the same banner. For instance, participant 3 also mentions that they saved up in-game currency for a specific character who they wanted because they had low hopes of pulling the character. However, they received the character several times, which allowed them to upgrade the character to the maximum potential. Participant 5 had a similar experience in Genshin Impact, where they were able to receive 3 copies of the desirable character in just 70 pulls, where usually 90 pulls are required for only 1 copy of a 5-star character. The chance of receiving a 5-star character is 0.6%. Additionally, Genshin Impact has a 50-50 chance of receiving a limited 5-star character. This means that in 90 pulls, when receiving 5-star character, players have a 50% chance of obtaining a limited 5-star character. The other 50% chance is obtaining a 5-star standard character. Participant 5 was lucky enough to not lose any 50-50. Participant 4 describes their experiences both happy and sad. The participant was trying to receive a 4-star character in one of the limited banners. In Genshin Impact, the players are guaranteed to obtain at least one 4-star item every 10 pulls. regardless of how the pulls are made, individually or in a batch of 10 at once. This factor remains unchanged. Moreover, with the chance of a 5.1% of obtaining a 4-star Gatcha item, players have a 50% chance of obtaining a 4-star character. The other 50% is represented by the character's chance of obtaining a 4-star weapon. Additionally, when obtaining a 4-star character, players have a 50% chance of obtaining one of the 3 4-star characters presented on the banner. When losing the 50% chance, the next 4-star Gatcha item they receive will be one of the 3 4-star characters presented on the banner. Participant 4 had a chance of 0.425% of obtaining the desired 4-star character in every pull. Unfortunately, Participant 4 wasn't able to obtain the 4-star character that they wanted from this banner. This incident, however, still made the participant happy since they were able to pull 3 5-star characters in 105 pulls in this banner. As mentioned earlier, players can usually obtain one 5-star character in 70 to 90 pulls. Participant 4 was lucky enough to pull a 5-star character with a chance of only 0.6% per pull. As mentioned earlier, participants also share similar sad Gatcha experiences. Participant 1 and Participant 5 talk about Genshin Impact and share similar sad moments. Both mention that pulling multiple times and losing the 50-50 chance made them feel devastated. Participant 1 further mentions their experience on Honkai Impact 3rd, where they were receiving the same Gatcha item instead of the one they needed, demotivating them to play the game. Every participant briefly mentions saving up in-game currency for a certain Gatcha banner. Participant 2 and Participant 3 talk about this in detail. Participant 2 mentioned that in the game Another Eden, they saved up all of their in-game currency until they finally encountered a character they were interested in, visually and story-wise. Unfortunately, Participant 2 said that using all of their in-game currency on Gatcha did not bring them the desired character or anything of value. Participant 3 also saved up the in-game currency in a game called Arknights, and they were not able to acquire the limited character. According to Participant 3, that specific character was a one-time banner and will not get a rerun in the future. Moreover, they were disappointed in not receiving a character who was strong enough to complete harder game content. The participant did over 200 pulls, which according to them is a big amount in that specific game context. It's so weird reading this and then looking at chat and seeing Specky be like, oh, I 100% Cult of the Lamb, now I can do something productive. And my first thought in my brain is, do you even have the spoons to do something productive right now? I hope you can, though. As mentioned in Chapter 2.1 Gatcha, As mentioned in Chapter 2.1, Gatcha companies used to be transparent. As mentioned in Chapter 2.1, Gatcha companies need to be transparent when it comes to Gatcha mechanics. This information needs to be accessible for players at all times. Interestingly, most of the participants understood how the pity system works and the percentages that accompanied it. This means most of the participants read the information that is provided by companies regarding the Gatcha mechanic in the game in order to understand their chances of winning a certain Gatcha item. To summarize, participants were happy when they were able to receive a character in a low amount of pulls, winning the 50-50 chance. The participants felt devastated when losing the pity, as well as not being able to acquire the desired Gatcha items despite spending all of their in-game savings. One of the participants experienced both happiness and sadness in one of their interactions with the Gatcha mechanic. Additionally, it was also noted that most of the participants have read the information regarding Gatcha mechanics since they were able to remember their chances of receiving a Gatcha item, as well as the pulls. It's clear in the participants' accounts that they developed strong emotional connections to their favorite characters. Some participants even said that they kept on playing with their favorites even after having other high-ranking characters. There were also accounts of pulling for specific characters after learning about their backstory or being attracted to their visuals. This emotional connection with the characters also answers question 3. Sleeping can be protective if you think about it. I very much agree with that statement. Question 5.4, or sub-question 4. What aspects of gacha games keep the players engaged? This study suggests that the participants are drawn to gacha games by multiple aspects. Sub-question 1 highlights what participants are attracted to. This study suggests that the participants are drawn to gacha games by multiple aspects. Sub-question 1 highlights that participants are attracted to the narrative, characters, and visuals of gacha games. Through narrative, participants mentioned that they had a chance to learn about certain characters, which influenced their decision of whether to pull or not for that specific character. However, some of the participants pull for all of the characters since they want to own a collection. It is also important to note that participants were still having fun due to the learning experiences with the gacha items. Moreover, sub-question 2 discussed what aspects of gacha games pushed away the participants. As mentioned earlier, participants are interested in narrative. However, when the new content became irrelevant to the main narrative, participants took it as noise and quit the game. Another aspect that was considered as noise was the introduction of a new feature in the game. This feature forced participants to engage with the gacha mechanic, which was not to their liking. Burnout and time constraints were additional reasons for taking a break from gacha games. Sub-question 2 also asked why the participants returned to gacha games. These reasons include nostalgia, time availability, and new content of the game. The final and third sub-question looked into the emotional aspects the participants experienced when interacting with the gacha mechanic. Using the gacha mechanic made the participants both happy and sad. Participants experienced excitement when obtaining the desired gacha item in a low amount. Participants experience excitement when obtaining the desired gacha item in a low amount of pulls. In these moments, participants describe the gacha mechanic as fun. When participants did not receive the desired character while spending all of their in-game savings, they described it as being a sad experience. As it can be seen here, there are several aspects of gacha games that participants find engaging. The engaging aspects that were discussed are the narrative, art style, and characters together with their visuals and backstories. Based on the participants' accounts, the reason that makes them stay with the games is the consistent, relevant game updates, which keep releasing new stories and characters. While Gacha facilitates the experience and allows players to acquire new characters and items, it was not specifically mentioned by participants as a reason for engaging with the game. Participants, however, did not express an intense emotional response to pulling the characters they desired. Both positive emotion when they pulled are considered to be low, and negative emotion when they were unable to acquire the desired number. Conclusion. The premise was that gacha game players are interested in a steady influx of content generated by the gacha mechanic, which delivers a continuous learning experience. However, the participants did not perceive this as the primary reason for their interest in the gacha. Based on the participants' responses, the sense of attraction mostly comes from the story, visuals, and the feeling of owning a collection of potential rewards. While some participants focused on collecting as many items as possible, others saw only the items that satisfied their needs. Despite the fact that participants were not pulling gacha to learn, the learning process happened inevitably through using the gacha item. Most of the participants mentioned that they were able to master at least one of their most used gacha items. However, in most cases, However, in some cases, the learning process happened prior to the item release due to leaks provided by the community. Moreover, the participants were able to learn about specific gacha items through trials and narrative. While analyzing the data, it is important to notice that the irrelevant gacha game updates were frowned upon and were considered noise by participants. Companies should be trying to develop relevant content even when it comes to gacha. Additionally, the game developers are recommended to provide enough gameplay to last for the whole patch in order to prevent players from experiencing burnout. The engaging aspect of gacha games, according to participants, are the narrative, the game visuals, and when it comes to the gacha element, the participants were interested in the character gacha. The narrative was the most popular aspect of gacha games amongst participants. The participants mentioned that when the story does not match the initial game concept, or when the developers stop producing more narrative, they quit. Additionally, when the new game updates were released, the participants tried to seek out patterns in the newly provided content. As stated by Koster, when players fail in identifying the patterns, they tend to get frustrated and give up. This behavior was recognized amongst participants when they were talking about irrelevant gacha game content. The account suggests that participants engage with gacha games due to their visuals and anime style, especially in characters. In addition to characters' visuals, participants were also interested in their backstories. Through their biography and background stories, participants were able to connect with the characters on an emotional level, getting attached to them. Participants further experienced attachment to characters when finally obtained them through gacha using their in-game savings. On top of the emotional attachment, participants showed a tendency of overusing the character they made a connection with. To conclude, to answer the research question, what aspects of gacha games keep the players engaged? The aspects that participants find engaging are represented by story and visuals. In terms of the gacha mechanic, participants were particularly interested in obtaining character rewards. Furthermore, participants often did not care about the rarity of gacha items as they wished to collect all items to achieve a sense of completion. Recommendation for further research. Even though the participants did not explicitly refer to gacha mechanics as a motivating factor to engage with gacha games, they did mention tactics and emotional attachment related to pulls in acquiring gacha items. For further research, with the help of a prototype, it will be interesting to analyze whether players are in fact interested in the gacha mechanic or if it is just forced upon them. This might be tested, for example, via a A/B prototype featuring the same type of gameplay, but wherein A, players and items can be acquired via gacha, and in B, they can be purposely bought via a shop front or similar. Furthermore, it will be interesting to find if the gacha mechanic would be as successful and popular amongst players in games featuring visual styles other than anime, as this visual style was pointed out as participants as one of the reasons they were attracted to or started playing gacha games. And here are the credits. This is the appendix. Hello everyone, me and my thesis partner are writing a paper on gacha games. We're looking for 5 players who are comfortable with jumping in a voice chat with us and answering a few questions. We have prepared a set of queries and we ask for 20 minutes of your time to help us gather data that will help us with our research. The interviews are going to be voice recorded and anonymous. You have the right to withdraw any time without interview. We have a few requirements. You must be playing gacha games 20 hours a week. Have taken a break from gacha games for at least 1 month. Is playing/has played any gacha games. Examples: Iyojimi, Etsos, Heroes, Genshin Impact, Miracle, Nikki Love, Nikki, Honkai Impact 3rd, Arknights, etc. Comfortable talking to strangers. We appreciate your contribution and thank you in advance for your help. Appendix B. These are the questions they asked. There's also a glossary. And that's all. When I post this on YouTube, I will have a link in the description for the paper. The questions asked. Tell us about how you got started with gacha games. What games have you played or still play the most? How long have you been playing the game? Did your interest change for these games? If so, when and how? When you stopped playing a game, how long was the break? Which game was it? And why did you take the break? Why did you come back? What kind of gacha content, characters, equipment, skin, etc. are you most interested in? Tell us one of the gacha pulls that made you happy or sad. How did you first encounter the character, item, skin, etc. and how did you feel about them? Did you pursue getting more information about the character or weapon? Did you use them in different teams? Did you master the skills of the character or weapon? How many pulls did it take you to get the item character? Did you spend real currency? If no, did you ever spend real currency? What was your average pull per patch? 6 weeks. They were further from the emotional aspect. Did this pull affect your playtime or gameplay experiences in any way? If so, how? What is your age? What is your gender? What is your occupation? Where are you from? Are there other types of games you enjoy? It makes me a little butthurt that there are certain things that they didn't include. I understand that gender is probably something that they felt is identifiable, but I think that there were things that gender could have influenced. But I do think based on the questions they asked, otherwise, there's not a lot that the gender would have had any effect on any of these questions. Occupation may have been interesting to note, but the difference between someone being employed versus being a student was relevant enough in and of itself, because the people who were employed and not students even reflected on when they were a student or when they were unemployed and their ability to put a lot of money into gachas, which was interesting. Where you from may have been interesting, but considering everyone was interested in the anime aesthetic regardless of where they were from, that was probably irrelevant. What other games you enjoy would have been interesting, especially in comparing and contrasting the types of games that people played that weren't gachas. And that's it. That was what aspects of gacha games keep the players engaged. Thanks for watching!